It's Thursday the 15th of January from the MEN newsroom. This is Channel M's Lunchtime News and these are today's headlines. On the up but could do better, the verdict on Manchester's schools in the latest league tables.
It's up to schools to help parents understand league tables and make sense of them, to know how well their school is performing.
Also coming up, drugs on the doorstep. A pub landlord in Bolton's worried dealers are operating just outside his premises.
And this is a regular thing in this area, people dropping off and picking up drugs and all that. And I was amazed that these things happen so openly.
And in the Navy, we get an exclusive look at life on one of our nuclear submarines.
HMS Vengeance is one of our 4 nuclear deterrent submarines and carries the country's independent nuclear deterrent.
Good afternoon. First this lunchtime, Greater Manchester schools are officially on the up. The latest league tables show grades in all 10 boroughs have improved, though in some areas they are still lagging behind the national average. We've been out to one of the schools which is most improved. Beverly Walkden has more.
Now, league tables out today show most of our schools here in Greater Manchester are improving. But if you want to understand how your child's school has performed, it can be quite a complicated process. Well, with us is a head teacher to demystify the process. Your school's done very well. What should parents make of them?
Parents will have mixed views about league tables. Some parents might be confused about the information in league tables. From a school point of view, league tables obviously enable us to be competitive with others. They do provide information to parents, and it's up to schools to help parents understand league tables and make sense of them, to know how well their school is performing.
Now, quite a few figures to work out. What should parents be looking for, and how do they interpret those figures?
There's a lot of information on league tables. As schools, we do use that information as well as part of our school improvement work. As parents, one piece of information you could look for example, is the percentage of students who achieve 5 or more higher grade passes. That's an important benchmark for many children. A separate figure is the percentage of students who achieve 5 or more higher grade passes with English and maths. Additional information is about value added, and that will be on a league table under the heading of CVA. And CVA is contextual value added. It takes an individual child, it looks at their achievement before entry to the school, takes into account factors like social factors that might influence achievement, and looks at how well that school has worked with that child, generates information in quite a complex way and comes out with a figure for each school. Any figure above 1,000 is above expectations, below 1,000 is below expectations.
Wonderfully explained there. Now, a chance to blow your own trumpet. Just tell us how well you've done this time round.
St Patrick's has done particularly well. 100% of our students achieve 5 or more higher grade passes.
Well done. Well, if you want to find out how your child's school has performed, you can get those figures right now online, www.manchestereveningnews.co.uk. Back to the studio.
Thanks very much, Beverly. Well, let's take a look at today's league table statistics now, borough by borough. These are the percentages of pupils who got at least 5 GCSEs at grades A star to C, including both English and maths. Now, the national average for that was 47%, up from 46% the year before. 3 of our boroughs did better than that. Stockport had 52%, Bury 56%, and Trafford, where they still have grammar schools, tops the table with 64% of students achieving those 5 A star to C grades, making Trafford the 3rd best in the country. But our other 7 boroughs are below the national average. They are Wigan, Bolton, Oldham, Rochdale, Tameside, Salford, and at the bottom Manchester itself. While Manchester has seen one of the biggest improvements, going from 32% to 37%, it's still well below the national average. Well, we've already seen one of the schools which is the most improved in our area getting a gold star today, but there are some that have been told they must make serious improvements here in Greater Manchester 30 are still on the government's hit list. They include North Manchester High School for boys, Brookway in Wythenshawe and Spring Hill High in Rochdale. If they don't improve, they could be put under new management. For a full list of the good, bad and indifferent, log on to the website of our sister newspaper, that's manchestereveningnews.co.uk. There you can also check out all of today's tables in full, which include A-level results as well, which have also shown improvements. There are calls, though, for the league tables to be scrapped. Some of the teaching unions say they don't tell the whole story. Well, with me now to talk a little bit more about this is Avis Gilmore, who's from the National Union of Teachers around here. Thank you very much for coming in. First of all, what is it that you have against these league tables? Why would you like them to be scrapped?
Well, the league tables have an ongoing detrimental effect to all of those schools who are basically not in the top, say 50 of the league tables, and particularly those schools at the bottom. It's very difficult for the morale of teachers working in schools that are perceived to be not as successful as the others and below the national average. They feel that they're not working hard enough and their teaching's being criticised. It's difficult to attract teachers to those schools for that reason. The pupils in those schools feel that they're worthless and they're not perceived as being worth putting the money into. And of course parents then choose not to send pupils in future years to those schools.
Isn't it true, though, that parents like the league tables because it gives them something to compare one school they may be thinking of sending their child to another one down the road they maybe weren't considering?
Well, I think if you asked a lot of parents who've seriously looked at the league tables, they would admit to having trouble actually understanding them. There's so many different components and so many areas in which a school might be perceived as not doing very well, whereas in another column they are doing very well indeed. So I think it's difficult for the majority of parents to really grasp what the league tables mean. But in the scheme of the schools in the top 50, saying we are in the top 50, then yes, parents do want their children to go to those really good schools.
What would you like to see instead of league tables then?
We'd like to see a really well-funded education system where every school was a really successful school. There are no league tables now in Wales or Scotland, and there's been absolutely no detrimental effect on their education system. And if every school was fully funded, if all teachers were properly resourced to manage those individual pupils who do struggle at school, then there wouldn't be a worry about which school your child went to. They would go to the nearest one and you would know that it would be excellent. OK, Avis Gilmore from the National Union of Teachers, thank you very much for joining us this lunchtime. Well, we'd like your thoughts on this story as well. Maybe you're a parent who's looked through the league tables, or perhaps you're a teacher who works at one of the schools. You might have a different view on this. We'd like you to text us your thoughts. Do you think league tables should be scrapped? You can get in touch on 88821. Start your message with the word news, that number again, 88821. Or you can email newsdesk@channelm.co.uk. We'll go through some of your comments later. On to the day's other main stories now, and police are investigating a crash in Salford that's killed a teenage girl. The 14-year-old was walking along East Lancs Road at 7:30 last night when she was hit by a Nissan Skyline. She died later after being taken to Hope Hospital. Heathrow is to get its controversial third runway. The government's confirming details of the £9 billion expansion, which will also include a new 6th terminal. Gordon Brown is defending the decision, saying the needs of the economy have to be balanced with the needs of the environment. The development will swallow up the nearby village of Sipson and will take 10 years to be finished. Planes using it will also have strict noise and air quality targets. A pub landlord from Bolton is demanding police take more action over concerns drug dealers are operating outside his premises. Donald Gale is so worried about the problem and a lack of anything happening to sort it out, he got in touch with us. We sent our reporter Nina Warhurst to investigate.
When residents in Halliwell told Donald Gale that drugs were being dealt outside his pub and community centre, he didn't believe them. That was until Monday morning.
It was around 11 o'clock-ish, and there's a young mother outside, sat on the wall with a pram and a baby, and she sat waiting at the wall for some time, and somebody came over, handed her what I presuming was drugs. And I was a bit concerned, to see what happened, and then I could confirm with a neighbour across the road, the gentleman says, but he said this is a regular thing in this area, people dropping off and picking up drugs and all that. And I was amazed that these things happen so openly.
And Donald was shocked when he looked in some bushes just metres from the entrance to his pub and community centre.
Yeah, someone just said, you know, if you want evidence, just look in here. And because I've never looked in here, but I looked in here and also straight away I seen a used needle there.
There's one just there, isn't there?
There's one there, and then there's obviously a methadone bottle there. You know, there was a syringe at the top end over there. I think there's a syringe and some cans and that.
And just a couple of metres away is a CCTV camera.
I think you would feel very safe with the camera being like that. You know, you would think you'd be in a perfect situation, but it makes you wonder what it is there for then, isn't it?
We've spoken to a number of residents on this estate in Halliwell, and it's obviously a really close-knit community, but nobody will come on camera, and that's because they're frightened. Some of them have been mugged out on the main roads. A lot of them are scared to leave the houses after dark, and Donald's obviously doing something really brave in trying to make a difference, and it just seems like a real shame if his efforts aren't going to be supported. We followed up calls and emails that Donald had made a few days earlier to his police community support officer, his local council and his local MP. He's been promised a visit soon, but says he feels isolated and unsupported.
I would like a police officer to come today and says, knock on the door and say, you know, we've got your concerns, let's hear a bit more about it. And that's not happened.
Nina Warhurst, Channel M News.
The firm that owns Currys and PC Worlds announced a 10% drop in its quarterly sales. DSG International says it thinks shoppers were putting off buying things till after Christmas. But in the final 2 weeks, like-for-like sales did increase by 2% across the group. Bosses say, though, they are ready for a difficult year. A woman from Stretford who stole a mobility scooter like this one while drunk and tried to ride it home has been banned from driving. Amanda Leaf was spotted by an off-duty police officer while twice the legal limit. She'd spent an hour on it trying to get back to Oldham, but its top speed is less than 2.5 miles an hour. She's lost her licence for 20 months and been ordered to pay £240. Next, we've been given an exclusive insight into what life's like for Greater Manchester's Navy personnel on board one of our nuclear submarines. Manchester Evening News reporter Deborah Linton's been for a tour of HMS Vengeance at the base in Scotland, where it's currently docked. From there, she sent us this report.
HMS Vengeance is one of our 4 nuclear deterrent submarines and carries the country's independent nuclear deterrent. Its sole purpose is to go out and remain completely and utterly undetected from the enemy, and thus be a credible deterrent against any aggression by whoever.
Vengeance carries the country's Trident nuclear missile system and up to 48 ballistic warheads at any time. It or one of the Navy's 3 other Vanguard-class submarines is always on patrol in a secret location in the world's oceans and are capable of diving to depths in excess of 250 metres below the surface. Currently stationed at Her Majesty's Naval Base Clyde in Scotland, we were allowed unprecedented access to the bomber submarine, where we met some of the 135 crew preparing to go back out to sea.
Well, I joined the Navy in, 16th of January 1989. As the most junior mechanic, and in 20 years I've progressed through there, through certain aspects of nuclear training as a senior technician, and I've still got another 19 years to go if I want to. When I first joined submarines, my mum thought we had big windows and all the rest of it, so no, I think there's a lot of popular misconceptions on submarines, that they're cramped. I mean, as you've seen yourself, it isn't that cramped. Dark, gloomy, they're not. You can't do any physical exercise, which you can, and there's a lot of aspects of adventurous training and sports that are available to you when you come back for your support crew period. There is certain aspects of submarine life that you can divulge, and I think that's one of the attractions to it.
What are the best and worst things about being on a submarine for 3 months?
Being away from family, because my girlfriend's pregnant, so don't really get to see her that much.
And what are the best things?
People.
Yeah, all lads stick together, it's like a bit of a family kind of thing.
The true extent of life in the silent service remains just that. Submariners are able to divulge little about what they do and where they go on patrol, but despite that, they still enjoy life on board.
The rewarding parts are being part of a very intense team that goes out and does the necessary business underwater day in, day out. In terms of worth, you are at the forefront of British defence and foreign policy all the time.
Let's get the latest on those Kaká transfer rumours and the rest of the sport. Here's Sam Goodman.
Thank you, James. Well, it's been a hectic morning. Manchester City boss Mark Hughes is adamant the bid to buy Brazilian superstar Kaká is still on, despite reports on a Middle East website this morning saying the £100 million deal was off. The ArabianBusiness.com website is saying City have now set their sights on another Serie A striker who's not, and I quote, in the Kaká League. We'll have the latest on that in our early evening news tonight. Well, staying with City, and the Blues are also confident they'll sign West Ham striker Craig Bellamy. The third bid was rejected late last night, but Hughes is still interested in bringing the player to Eastlands. Manchester United moved up to second in the Premier League after defeating Wigan 1-0 at Old Trafford last night. The Reds are now 2 points behind league leaders Liverpool with a game in hand. It took less than a minute for Wayne Rooney to score the only goal of the game, shortly after the striker limped off with a hamstring injury and unfortunately will be out for up to at least 3 weeks. Bolton have called off the deal surrounding ex-Wigan midfielder Jimmy Bullard and World Cup winner Danielson. Gary Megson's £5 million bid for Bullard was short of Fulham's valuation of the player, while Brazilian Danielson isn't the kind of player Megson is looking for right now. And Wigan player Kevin Kilban has finally joined Hull City. The Ireland international has signed a 2.5-year contract for an undisclosed fee. Well, on the breakfast show this morning was Stockport's very own silverback Tony O'Shea, who told us of his experience in the BDO Darts World Championship final.
It was a really enjoyable game. It was a fantastic spectacle. I thought he'd run away with it in the early stages, but that fight back after the break, yeah, I was really chuffed to come back and make a close game of it.
Because of course it was only 12 months ago that he almost hung up his arrows. He had a big bit of a hissy fit, shall we say, and he's sort of gathered himself together and came back and was, well, a real dominant force.
Oh, he's changed his lifestyle a bit. He's not getting as stressed as he used to. I mean, this tournament we were just waiting for him to explode each round, but he didn't.
And talking Sharks tonight, Will Perry met up with Sale Sharks winger Mark Cueto, who was called up to the elite England squad yesterday. Cueto hasn't played for England since the Rugby World Cup final in 2007, but recent outstanding performances have earned himself a recall.
We're obviously going to talk about the World Cup 2007. We'll cut to the chase. Stuart Dickinson, do you write him a Christmas card?
No chance. You know, I get asked about it all the time. And
he was the video ref, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So many organisations have said it was, it wasn't.
Yeah.
In your heart, what do you have an answer? Or do you...
Without a shadow of a doubt, it was. Yeah. Like I say, deep down, I still feel it was, and I think if it was any other game apart from the World Cup final that try to have been given, I think it was just the enormous sort of occasion that got to the decision. I think I remember sort of the following weeks coming home from the World Cup. There was games on Sky, you know, Premiership games, and there was tries that were going to the video ref, and there was tries that were given that were nowhere near as obvious a try as what mine was that wasn't given.
In Rugby League, Salford coach Sean McRae believes his side can reach the Super League playoffs this season. He knows there is no great expectation of his side lifting any silverware, but there's no reason why they can't finish in the top 8. And finally, in tennis, Andy Murray has been seeded 4th for the Australian Open, which begins on Monday. The 21-year-old has been in impressive form this year, having won tournaments in Abu Dhabi and Qatar. Well, that's all the sport from me for now. Join me again later on this evening, where I'll have all the news from Kaká's move to Manchester City.
Thank you very much, Sam. We'll join you later on for that. Still to come on the lunchtime news then. A lucky escape from a burning house for a family in Ashton, and also Greater Manchester's top police officer has been to visit children he wants to stop from falling into a life of crime.
Well, this is a visit to a school that I'm making with one of the local officers. It's part of our Community Champions programme. The Community Champions scheme is very much about local officers getting into schools, specific schools in this case, and talking youngsters through a whole series of different activities, videos, usual sort of educational activities.
Welcome back to Channel M's Lunchtime News. We're here every day with all of Greater Manchester's top stories between 12 and 1 o'clock. You can always find them online as well at channelm.co.uk. Log on and take a look right now, where we've got more on the report that's found asbestos in the vast majority of schools in our area, and also pictures from the church used by Coronation Street for the wedding of Tyrone and Molly, where producers have had to say sorry for covering up a cross on the altar. That's at channelm.co.uk. Next, there's been a lucky escape from a burning house for a family in Ashton. The blaze broke out last night, but thankfully they all managed to get to safety. Georgia Calvin-Smith's been to meet them.
At about 5 a.m. this morning, the family of Lal and Shazid Hussain were alerted to the beginnings of a fire in their home by the sound of a smoke alarm waking them up. Before placing an emergency call, neighbours say that they heard Mr. Hussain shouting to his wife to get their 4 children out of the house. The family managed to escape unscathed, although Lal did receive burns to his arm, which were treated at the scene. Many of the rooms in the house have been completely gutted, and the fire and rescue service had only installed a smoke alarm in the house about 18 months ago. They say the family had a lucky escape.
Downstairs is absolutely, it's fully gone, and upstairs one of the rooms is like totally destroyed as well, and the rest of it's just smoke damage. The fire brigade people, when I asked them before, have said that without the fire alarm today, it saved their lives, and that's the thing, what price can you put on 6 lives?
It really, really does emphasise the importance of having a working smoke alarm in the property, sited correctly, making sure that the batteries are working, that nobody removes the batteries from the smoke alarms. This really does emphasise the fact that they are a life-saving piece of equipment.
A woman whose conservatory was set alight in an arson attack last summer is putting up a reward from her own pocket to find whoever is responsible. The 52-year-old is willing to pay £3,000 to catch the offenders who targeted her home in Lee back in June. She was sitting in her house when a burning milk bottle of flammable liquid was flung over her garden fence. 2 boys were arrested but then got released without charge. Gaza has seen some of its heaviest fighting yet, with Israeli tanks shelling Gaza City. Ground troops have also pushed deep into a crowded neighbourhood for the first time. 70 targets were fired at by Israeli aircraft overnight. It's as speculation grows a deal is close to agreeing a 10-day ceasefire. Now, the area's chief constable has dropped into a school here in Greater Manchester. Peter Fahy has paid pupils the visit to check up on a programme aimed at stopping them embarking on a life of crime.
Mr. Vice come along to see you all and just get... I've told him all about what we did as part of being community champions. Remember, all before Christmas, didn't we?
Well, this is a visit to a school that I'm making with one of the local officers. It's obviously a great atmosphere here. It's part of our Community Champions programme and part of a huge amount of work that Greater Manchester Police is doing in local schools. The Community Champions scheme is very much about local officers getting into schools, specific schools in this case, and talking youngsters through a whole series of different activities, videos, usual sort of educational activities. I think the parents have been very supportive. I think local people want to know who their local officer is. They want to feel a local officer is spending time in their community, getting to, building those relationships. And I think most people think that schools are very important. So I think overall, the public very much do value this sort of work.
Cheese! Thank you very much indeed.
Right, well done.
It's been a fairly grey morning across much of the area. Let's see how the afternoon's shaping up now. Michelle Eagleton has the forecast.
Well, it has been very dark across Greater Manchester this morning. Pretty much the same this afternoon, I'm afraid. Lots of heavy rain is expected. But mainly right through the afternoon and into the evening, some really, really bad showers. So make sure you've got your brolly with you. You're definitely going to need it today. Those temperatures, though, that we're seeing are highs of between 8 and 9. So it's milder than it was yesterday, but there is a strong breeze creeping its way in from the southerly direction. Now, that breeze probably is going to hit us about 2, 3 o'clock. That's going to be the heaviest part of the day, really, when we are going to see some of that wind being very, very chilly indeed. So do wrap up nice and warm if you are going to be heading outdoors this afternoon and into this evening. And also that rain will be staying with us this evening and the next couple of days, because I can tell you that Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday we are going to see some heavy showers. A little bit of a respite tomorrow. We'll see some sunshine and highs of 10, but really Saturday isn't looking like a great start to the weekend.
This is Channel M's Lunchtime News. That's all we have time for today. We'll have much more with Andy Crane from 5 o'clock this evening. Do join him for that. But from me and the rest of the Lunchtime team, have a good afternoon. Bye-bye for now.